Hello, and thank you for joining my coffee talk today. My name is Dr. Khadijah Ali-Coleman, and I'm presenting a coffee talk that is talking about homeschooling a high schooler on a college pathway. So, I wanted to share a little bit about myself first of all. I maintain the resource website, So Our Youth Aspire, which you can learn more about at soyaonline.wordpress.com. I offer homeschool classes and workshops at studentmediaonline.com. I conducted my dissertation research studying Black dual enrolled homeschool students' perceptions of preparedness for community college that you can read for free at Ali-Coleman.com. I previously served as a college administrator at Morgan State University and taught community college for 10 years. I'm co-founder of Black Family Homeschool Educators and Scholars, and I've homeschooled my daughter entirely for high school, off and on, throughout her 13 years of P through 12 education. I am pleased to say that I graduated her this past May from our homeschool, and she was dual enrolled and earned her associate's degree in the humanities and social sciences. So today's talk is going to focus on what we call dual enrollment. So I'm going to start off with talking about dual enrollment, talking about the importance of having your homeschool mission, researching the best options, preparing for dual enrollment, scheduling college courses, and the benefits of dual enrollment while homeschooling for high school. So dual enrollment is the term used to describe when a high school student is taking high school courses at a high school and enrolled in college, taking college courses for credit as well. So in general, dual enrolled students and students who are homeschooled prior to enrollment are more likely to graduate from college, not just community college if that's where they start, but if they were to start at a community college and then transfer to a four-year college, they're more likely to graduate, not only graduate, but have higher GPAs and just higher persistence overall. When we talk about persistence, that means going through college consistently without any breaks, large breaks in between. You know, some folks who may start college after high school, leave for a while, and maybe turn in their 30s or when they're older. Dual enrolled and homeschooled children or students tend to persist and just go from when they started and then complete within a 4 to 6 year time frame. So this presentation is going to focus on dual enrolling in community college as opposed to dual enrollment in a four-year institution or some type of online program. Now, many community colleges have online programs, but this presentation is going to focus on community college. I know, for instance, my daughter graduated, like I said, from community college, but she took both classes that were in person as well as those that were online. Community colleges are where almost half of undergraduate college students in the United States begin their college education. So when you are beginning to homeschool your high schooler, whether your child has come from a traditional learning space, whether a public, private, or charter school, or if you've been homeschooling them for the entirety of their school career, I recommend at any phase to develop some type of mission for your homeschool practice. And the mission statement is akin to what you may read a nonprofit having. You know, mission statements typically talk about the populations that they serve and the ways in which they want to serve them. And I believe that a mission statement or some type of guiding principles or goals gives some clarity in terms of how you are dedicating your time. Every homeschooling family does it differently, and many homeschooling families may have a different mission for each phase of the child's schooling experience or the developmental phase where they are. The youth development phase where they may be psychologically, socially, or if you're keeping close to a traditional grade schedule. I know that the mission statement that I had for my daughter when she was elementary school, very different than high school, mainly because the level of self-direction that she demonstrated and really was striving for in high school was very different than when she was younger. So your homeschool mission statement should factor in your intended learning outcomes. Your learning outcomes are what are the things that you want or you and your child want the child to be able to demonstrate after participating in certain activities. So if you are choosing dual enrollment, what are the outcomes that you want demonstrated once they go through this process? You then want to think about the why of your homeschool practice. Why are you doing this? Um, you know, I think sometimes folks are conflicted with, you want your child, in theory, it's really nice to say, I want them to be liberated, have body agency, but yet you structure your homeschool practice in a way that's very strict and rarely allows for them to have the flexibility of having any type of self-directed experience. And so you really need to think about the why. Make sure that you're not really being hypocritical or just really unclear as to why, what is it that you want those outcomes to be? What is this experience you want to curate for your young person? You also want to have an understanding of your child's learning style, and not recommend for high schoolers, they should have an understanding of what their learning style is as well. An understanding of your learning style will help make decisions when it comes to what types of courses you're taking during dual enrollment. One of the things that I've always had to talk to students about as a college administrator is really pushing back against this notion that online classes are going to be easier when in fact online classes really rely on a set of skills that really aren't developed unless a person is allowed to develop their own schedule, have experience with that. And when I say their own schedule, determining when to study, determining when to read. There's a difference between studying and doing homework. There's a difference between, devoting time to listening to a classroom lecture and then engaging in some type of study. All of those things are different types of practices and things that a person needs to really develop for themselves. One person may not require the same amount of reading and studying time than another person. So those are the things that a child really needs to begin to understand about themselves. How do they go about learning, retaining information, synthesizing information? Also an understanding of your child's strengths, those areas where they can easily adapt and they find interest in engaging. Also include into your mission statement your child, if possible. But I think it's actually necessary, particularly when we're talking about a teenager beginning high school. This is that phase where you want them to begin visioning and actualizing goals that they really are developing and setting for themselves. So intended outcomes are the things you want your child to be able to do during your homeschool journey as a teen. Again, the things that they will be doing. So they are the ones that are demonstrating the effectiveness of this activity because you see in what they're able to do that it was effective. You Some examples of intended outcomes are improved critical thinking. A business is developed after they go through this activity or this course or this program. They're able to complete living tasks self-sufficiently, such as cooking, laundry, farming, sewing. These are examples. They practice self-care effectively. They may invent something and then file for a patent. They may write a book, publish written work, be prepared to attend college, enter the workforce, or begin a business. So all of these things are actual things that homeschool students have done while still teenagers, not once they become adults. These are things that that you will read and hear from parents who have said these are the things that their children do. I think of I think of Queen Thais of Liberated Minds Expo, and many of these things on this list are things that she talks about her children doing. My daughter has been included in books and newspapers even before high school. She continues to improve her critical thinking. Just with the debates that she and I engage in, definitely is being able to demonstrate self-sufficiency through cooking. She navigates the city. We are in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. We live very close to Washington, D.C. She can navigate metro and travel by herself, whether it's taking a lift, whether it's taking metro. She's soon going to get her license. Grooming was something that I was always really impressed at a very early age, because I've worked with young people my entire life, even when I was a young person. And I know that one of the things that as a parent, it was, what is that grooming conversation going to be about? Grooming and hygiene. But that was something that my daughter took hold of very early. And so these are all things that are outcomes, intended outcomes. And so when you're creating this mission statement, you want to think about, what is that child going to be able to do once they engage in this learning activity? So outcomes may shift and change throughout your homeschooling journey. And it's recommended to include your children in this process of determining intended outcomes as they get older and more independent. So what is the why of your homeschool practice? The why of your homeschool practice should be clear to you and should inform your decisions in curating your child's learning experience. Some whys include to center African history and culture in your child's learning experience. Your why may be to direct learning activities in a mentally and emotionally safe environment that's not racist or violent. Your why may be to encourage self-directed learning behaviors, or to encourage entrepreneurship, or to provide academic supports unavailable in traditional school setting, or to spend more time with your children. These are the whys. A mission statement can reflect these whys, and I encourage this process because sometimes we need to get clear as to why we're even engaging in this. And especially when we are homeschooling our high schoolers who are just steps away from being considered adults. You want everything that you do with them, or the opportunities that you bring to their doorstep, or you engage them, and you want them to be aligned with some part of your value set, but also to empower them to be able to be self-sufficient and independent individuals. So I interviewed my Mona Youssef last year for publication that Queen Tais's Liberated Minds organization is going to be putting out this year. There's been some delays, but it was one of the best interviews I've engaged in. I'm hoping to release some of the interview as a podcast for my podcast, Contemporary Perspectives on Black Homeschooling, that I have with Black family homeschool educators and scholars. But one of the things that she discussed, I really enjoyed hearing her talk about how homeschooling really allowed her to engage her son in opportunities that and benefit from the things that she is able to benefit from as a performing artist, as a well-known performing artist who gets to travel, who gets to have these experiences that many of young people don't have the proximity to. And so that why of your homeschooling practice can really be about connecting your young person to opportunities, even if you are not the main facilitator of those opportunities. I share this picture because my daughter actually was in traditional schooling for 7th and 8th grade. She was in a performing arts school. When I was homeschooling her for 6th grade, she had told me that she wanted some training and the performing arts because she wanted to be a YouTuber, and there were certain set of skills that she wanted to develop. And so I really encouraged her. I said, well, you need to really start auditioning and just building up your speaking skills, because that if you're going to be a YouTuber in front of an audience speaking extemporaneously, you need to really practice. And I actually have been a communication studies professor, and I was at the time when I was homeschooling her. But you know how it is, a lot of times your children, they're so used to you, they don't realize all the skills that you have. And so she was interested in auditioning, this audition that was coming up at the local performing arts school, and just wanted to audition, not really interested in going to school, but just to get some feedback. And she wound up getting into the school. And so she had such a positive experience with the audition process. The school incorporated children, and the students that already attended the school, they were part of the auditioning process. So those who were auditioning got to meet the children that attended the school, and she was in this environment of really artsy kids. And so she, after the audition, she said, if I get in, I might be interested in going to that school. And see, the why of my homeschool practice was for my is for my child to have agency and to have independence of thought and to know what she wants and what she's interested in. And so I was kind of sad when she said she wanted to go, because she wound up, of course, she wound up getting to the school. She was excellent. And she went, and by eighth grade, she was like, okay, that was enough. I would like to return to homeschooling. And that's how she came back to our homeschooling practice. But you need to know what the why of your homeschool practice is, because sometimes your child may decide to go back to traditional school or to engage in an opportunity that you didn't really consider being part of the homeschool practice. But it is, if your why is about creating agency and independence, sometimes you're going to have to agree to things that may not have been your idea to begin with. The why of your homeschool practice should be clear to you, and should center everything that it is that you are doing with your children. So you next want to understand your child's learning style, their strengths and interests. Ask yourself questions such as, does your child assign task or complete assigned task in a timely fashion? Do they engage in learning as a listener, a reader? Are they the conversationalist? Are they a memorizer, a writer, or a feeler? How does your child interact with other learners in group settings? How well does your child interact with others when you're not around? Are there subjects that your child has openly shared they enjoy most of all? How does your child perform when given opportunity to self-direct their activities for the day? And how does your child handle responsibility? All of these things will help you understand your child's learning style, their strengths, and their interests. Again, include your child in this process. What vision do they have for themselves? This is such a deep process to really help your child with their self-actualization process. A lot of times, some parents are so disconnected from this that children have to seek other resources to be able to engage in this type of visioning for themselves. That's really the type of work that therapists do, counselors, but parents can do this as well. And it really relies on us being great observers and listeners, and not only listening, but being empathetic in the feedback that we give to our children. Our nonverbals are crucial. I say this as a professional in communications. I have a master's degree, mass communication, where communication theory was foundational to the study. And then I wound up teaching communication studies for over 10 years at various community colleges. And I still not necessarily struggle, but I'm still developing my awareness of my nonverbals. More than 80% of the way that we communicate is nonverbally. And so folks are picking up on subtext. They're picking up on the silence, the slight movement of our body. Some are more sensitive to things like that than others. But our children definitely are paying attention to our nonverbals, to our body language, how we listen, how we show care for them and for their beliefs and feelings. And all of this figures into us creating safe spaces for them to be able to vision for themselves and have a vision for themselves. So after you create that mission plan, really reflect on your practice in general, you want to research what your options are for your high schooler. One of the things that my research for my dissertation showed was that mothers primarily, and I think we know this, are the primary resources and leading the homeschooling that's taken place in the home for our children. Now, when I did my research, all of my study participants were Black children between the ages of 14 and 17. And every single one of them indicated how their mother was the influencer of all they were and all they did in terms of feeling prepared and believing that they were prepared for community college. They gave me it was a vast realm of information in terms of the things that their mothers did for them. And so I kind of tabulated them and pulled out what the themes were. And so mother served as the educational curator, determining but basically all the things that I explained in the mission statement, but determining what that pathway was going to be for the child. They were the writing coach, the college mindset coach. One child I remember talking about how their mother just encouraged them and really helped them with their time management. You see time manager on here. You see early access to college provider, the cultural competency coach, that person that's helping them navigate different spaces than what they're used to from just being home or around their friends or in familiar spaces. And then the math coach. And so the mother's influence on the African American dual enrolled homeschool students' academic journey is paramount. And so the ways that these students said that they were prepared for dual enrollment relied on certain components, certain things being inherent in their homeschooling experience. They remarked on how field trips, being part of co-ops, being part of co-ops that help them build skills in areas of interest, whether it was science and robotics or whether it was writing, being able to have the ability to self-pace. Some of the children reported that when they were in traditional school, it really dragged them down and made them move at a slower rate than when they were able to be homeschooled. They could go at their own pace. And a lot of times it was accelerated. And then there were some students in my study who said the opposite, that they had the ability to go slower on some of those subjects that they enjoyed, but they may not have been that apt to grasp things quickly to be able to move at an accelerated pace. So that ability to self-pace allowed them to begin to have knowledge about what they liked and what they were good at. And sometimes it's not always students liking what they're good at or vice versa. And self-pacing allowed for them to really determine the differences. And so when they had these experiences in their homeschooling, while homeschooling with their parents, and this is during the high school years, when they went to the community college to take their dual enrolled classes, they felt that they were prepared because of their homeschool experiences in these 5 areas. They were more apt to be able to effectively communicate. They were more apt to manage their time and to turn in assignments and on time. They were able to complete their coursework because they had had that experience with self-pacing, because they had that experience with knowing what their interests and their strengths were. As you see here, they were able to complete that coursework. They also had a sense of cultural identity and awareness based on not only the activities that their parents had them involved in, but some of the young people also talked about being able to observe and listen to their parents talk with one another and understand the importance of how to, when in positions of power. This one young person, I really hope that you read my dissertation, but it's this passage where this person I interviewed, she talks about how she listened to her parents talk about work. And one of them was talking about how it was a new Black person who came to work and how the parent just felt compelled to look out for them and to just make sure that they were having an easy transition because they worked in a space that was predominantly white. And so they just wanted to be a support for this person that was entering this space as a minority. And this young person in my study recalled that conversation because it inspired her in her community college classrooms, where she herself is one of only a few Black students, to reach out and to be supportive to other Black students. Whereas without that context from her parents, she probably wouldn't recognize it as an act of responsibility, but also of cultural identity and awareness of just your participation in this new culture that you're navigating. So I thought it was important to address this topic in this way, instead of your first tip is to do da da da, but to just give some insight on what I have found to be effective strategies as the parent of a young person who just graduated my high school homeschool, but also she earned her associate's degree this past June. She's about to go to the University of San Francisco in the fall on full scholarship. I just thought it was important to present to you this information in this way so that you can start thinking about just how you're approaching your practice with your high schooler who is on a college pathway, in a way where you are acknowledging also their individuality and the potential that is there for you to support their positive youth development. So if you have any questions for me, I'd love for you to leave them in the marketplace thread on this teaching site. And if you're watching this through YouTube, you can leave your questions in the comment section below, but you can also reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Khadijah Online. Thank you so much for listening. And thank you for being part of the second annual Black Family Homeschool Educators and Scholars Teach-In. We're glad you're here.